Hello and welcome to Practice Insights, your podcast where we break down the complex intersection of medicine and law into practical, easy to use advice. I'm your host Nikita, and today we'll discuss a topic that every healthcare professional practicing telemedicine in India must know. How to take consent before giving a teleconsultation. With the rise of digital healthcare platforms, especially post-COVID, teleconsultation has become a lifeline for millions of patients. But with convenience comes responsibility, and one of the most critical responsibilities for a doctor is to obtain valid consent. Over the next 10 minutes, we'll cover what consent means in the context of teleconsultation, legal framework and guidelines in India, the difference between implied consent and explicit consent, step-by-step process of obtaining consent, best practices to protect both patients and doctors. So let's dive in. What is consent in teleconsultation? Consent, simply put, is an agreement between doctor and patient. It ensures that the patient is willing to receive medical advice or treatment after understanding the risks, benefits, and nature of the interaction. In face-to-face consultations, consent is often implied. The patient walks into your clinic, sits across the table, and starts sharing health complaints. But in teleconsultation, the situation is slightly different. Because it's remote, the possibility of misunderstanding, misrepresentation, or misuse is higher. That's why consent must be carefully documented. Legal framework in India. So what does the law say? The Telemedicine Practice Guidelines issued by the Board of Governors under the Medical Council of India in 2020 form the backbone of teleconsultation rules in India. These guidelines make it mandatory for registered medical practitioners, yes, that means you, to obtain consent before offering teleconsultation. The guidelines recognize two types of consent: implied consent and explicit consent. Implied consent. If a patient initiates the teleconsultation, for example by calling you on a telemedicine app or sending a WhatsApp message, it is considered implied consent. The very act of reaching out to you shows willingness. Explicit consent. This is needed when the doctor or a third party, such as a caregiver, initiates the consultation. In such cases, the patient must clearly agree before proceeding. Explicit consent can be given in written, audio, or video form. For example, a patient can send a text saying, "Yes, I consent to teleconsultation," or can say the same on a recorded call. When is explicit consent required? Let's make this practical with a few examples. If a patient messages you first on a telemedicine platform, consent is implied. If a doctor follows up with the patient after receiving lab results, explicit consent is required before discussing the case. If a parent of a minor contacts you on behalf of a child, you must obtain explicit consent from the parent or guardian. If a hospital administrator arranges a teleconsultation, explicit consent from the patient is mandatory. The golden rule: if the patient did not start the consultation themselves, get explicit consent. Step-by-step process of taking consent. Now let's break down the process. How do you actually take consent in a way that is valid, simple, and legally safe? Step 1. Identify the patient. Confirm name, age, location, and identity. This ensures you're consulting the right person. Step 2. Explain teleconsultation. Briefly inform the patient that this is a remote consultation, limitations may exist compared to in-person visits, and medical advice will be based on information shared. Step 3. Request consent. If explicit consent is required, ask the patient directly. Do you consent to proceed with this teleconsultation? Step 4. Record the consent. If text-based, save the chat message, "Yes, I consent." If audio, record the voice confirmation. If video, capture the patient saying yes. If email, ask for a written reply. Step 5. Document in your medical records. Always note in the case sheet Consent obtained via WhatsApp message on daytime. Or consent obtained via audio confirmation. Step 6. Proceed with consultation. Only after these steps should you provide advice, prescription, or referral. Best practices for safe teleconsultation. While the guidelines provide the framework, best practices ensure safety. Let me share some. Always introduce yourself with full name, qualification, and registration number before asking for consent. Avoid vague wording. Use clear phrases like, "Do you agree to proceed with teleconsultation and understand its limitations?" Maintain digital records. Screenshots, chat transcripts, or recorded audio should be saved securely. Use secure platforms. Official telemedicine apps or hospital software are better than unprotected social media chats. Respect withdrawal of consent. If a patient says they want to stop, end the consultation immediately. Never proceed without consent. Even in emergencies, at least obtain verbal consent and document it. Risks of ignoring consent. Now you may wonder, what happens if you skip consent? Failing to obtain consent before teleconsultation can expose doctors to professional misconduct cases under the Indian Medical Council Act. Legal liability for negligence if a patient claims they didn't agree. Data privacy issues under the Information Technology Act 2000. Remember, a 2-second effort to obtain consent can save you from years of legal trouble. Conclusion. To wrap up, here's what you should remember. In India, consent before teleconsultation is mandatory under the 2020 telemedicine guidelines. Implied consent applies if the patient initiates the consultation. Explicit consent is needed if the doctor, caregiver, or third party initiates. Always record and document consent, whether written, audio, or video. Following these steps protects both the patient's rights and your professional safety. Teleconsultation is the future of healthcare, but it must be practiced responsibly. And responsible telemedicine begins with informed consent. That's all for today's episode of MedLaw Simplified. I hope you found this guide useful. If you're a doctor practicing telemedicine, remember, consent is not just a legal formality, it's a cornerstone of ethical medical care.